I think it is safe to say that this will be the part where everything went downhill for the project. When Williams was in control of The Thief and the Cobbler, he did everything he could to make sure that the film would not be like any other animated feature. He didn't want this to be some kind of Disney-style musical with big-name celebrities as the main stars. He wanted it to be a visual extravaganza, where the animation would take center stage, even for the characters, where it's less about what they say, but rather how they move to express who they are. He worked very hard to ensure that his movie would not end up like every other forgettable and bland animated film of their time. But now that he got kicked out, the movie would go directly towards a whole new direction to have it become everything that Dick avoided it to be.
When the Completion Bond Company was the new owner of The Thief and the Cobbler, they only wanted to do one thing with the movie: finish it by any means necessary, even if it meant getting rid of the film's creator, Richard Williams. But after doing that, what would be the next step? There were a few others thrown around, including one proposal by Sue Shakespeare, one of the founders of Creative Capers Entertainment, where she would be in charge of the project while still letting Williams work on the feature and bring on board Terry Gilliam as a creative consultant to help fix up the story. It was tempting at first, but the company decided to go with a cheaper alternative. Remember the producer that was inspecting the production, Fred Calvert? Well, they decided to make him the new director. At first, Fred was a bit hesitant of the job, but he stated that in his mind, he wouldn't have any other choice, since among all the people in the company, he knew the most about the amount of effort that was put into the feature, and if he refused, Completion Bond would just find someone cheaper to do the job. And so, with the work print of the movie in hand given to him by Williams himself, Calvert set off to complete The Thief in a span of only 18 months. However, his approach to doing so was a little all over the place, and in some cases, it could be taken literally. The first big step was cutting the movie so that it could have a proper narrative structure, which Fred admitted was possibly the toughest task. He said that even he was so entranced by the beautiful animation done by Dick and his team that it was proven to be difficult to just throw out all that hard work. But nonetheless, he still ended up only using around half of the completed animation for his final cut. For him, great animation is one thing, but his job was to give the movie a proper story, and some of the footage was rather unnecessary. However, in order to save some of that unused animation as much as possible, he would put some of them during the end credits of his version. So with some of those extended scenes out, Calvert decided to add something that would completely alter the tone of the feature that Dick Williams tried to avoid: songs. That's right, he was about to turn this movie into a musical, because it's the 1990s, of course, and if any animated feature would ever wish to be as big as Disney, then they have to literally prepare their big song and dance numbers. Made by Norman Gimbel and Robert Folk, The Thief now has 4 musical numbers across the movie. These include She Is More, sung by Princess Yum Yum, Am I Feeling Love, the love ballad sung by both Yum Yum and Tack, Bom 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 Beam Bom, or That's What Happens When You Don't Go to School, the comedic song performed by the Brigands, and finally, It's So Amazing, which would play at the end of the film. In order to speed up production, Fred would outsource some of the scenes across several studios. Where What Happens When You Don't Go to School was animated by Calvert's animation team, She Is More was animated at Sullivan Bluth Studios, the company run by Don Bluth, and Am I Feeling Love was animated at Kroyer Films, the studio that made Fern Gully: The Last Rainforest. As for completing the animation with ink and paint, it would be completely outsourced in Taiwan at Wang Film Productions. After 29 years in the longest production in film history, the movie was finally released on September 23, 1993 under the new title, The Princess and the Cobbler. However, it wasn't widely released everywhere. It wasn't appealing enough for American distributors, and it only managed to get released in Australia and South Africa to little attention. But that wouldn't be the worst moment for the film. Sure, Calvert made some pretty bad changes, but at least he tried to have the movie retain some of its dignity. That would all change and be destroyed on December of 1994. Enter Miramax Films, then owned by Bob and Harvey Weinstein. The company decided to buy the North American rights and was prepared to release it as is. But apparently, that wasn't enough for Harvey. For him, there could be a few more adjustments made so that it could be more to his liking. To people who don't know what went into this film, they would presume that it's just some cartoon trying to cash in on Disney's Aladdin. Well, if that's what the general public would think of it, then Miramax would make the feature fully embrace that notion. The Princess and the Cobbler already cut the running time from Richard Williams' original work print, going from 93 minutes to 82, but now it would be cut down even shorter to 74 minutes. But what was worse was the decision of giving the movie a new cast and new dialogue written by Eric Gillian, Gary Glassberg, and Michael Hitchcock that would not only give the silent main characters a voice, but would also make them unable to shut up. While Vincent Price's voiceovers as Zigzag was still intact and later would have his name prominently displayed in the marketing, despite that he passed away 1 month after the release of The Princess and the Cobbler, the new cast Miramax brought in included Jennifer Beals as Princess Yum Yum, Eric Bogosian as Zigzag's pet vulture Fido, and Toni Collette as both the nurse and the old witch. But the most prominent voices are Matthew Broderick as Tack, whose role is to explain to the audience everything that's happening on screen in case what they see isn't obvious enough.
Finally, I was free. But freedom wasn't enough. I had to get to the princess.
And Jonathan Winters as the thief, whom instead of speaking in English, the thief would only communicate through pop culture references, because someone has to pretend like they're Robin Williams in this flick.
Good morning, Arabia. I've had my coffee, I've read the paper. Now it's time to get to work.
This new version, now called Arabian Night, was released on August 25th, 1995 in only 510 theater screens. The critics were giving it mixed reviews by praising the animation and the work done by Richard Williams, but heavily slamming the elements added by both Calvert and Miramax like the songs and the extra dialogue. As for the box office, it was a massive failure by only making more than $300,000 before it was pulled out just 2 weeks later. Since then, Miramax released the film on VHS and Laserdisc, and then later on DVD, with the only change being to give its original title back, The Thief and the Cobbler.
I think now would be a good time to talk about a bit of my side of the story. Now, I wasn't involved with the production, of course. I mean more sharing my memories related to this movie. Now, growing up in the 1990s, I remember that I would often see this film at my local Blockbuster, so I have been familiar with this movie throughout my life. But like many people at the time, me and my family never knew about the movie's long production history and would just pass it off as a ripoff of Disney's Aladdin. Regardless, we would still rent it from time to time as the kid distractor of the house, but it never left much of an impact enough for us to go and get it on VHS. The only time that we've ever owned it on any form of home media was honestly by accident, and it was with this. What you see here is the first time that The Thief and the Cobbler ever came out on DVD. It is as basic as you can get with just the movie, maybe a few language options, and that's it. You might be wondering though regarding the weird center on the disc. Why is it all decorated with Fruit Loops? Well, that was honestly the reason why we accidentally got it. In the early 2000s, when DVDs were brand new, Kellogg's had to deal with Alliance Films, who were distributing Miramax movies in Canada at the time, by putting a selection of their kids' films on DVD and sell them as a bonus when you buy a box of cereal for a limited time only in Canada. Why do I bring this up? Well, personally, I think this is the perfect example of how this movie hit rock bottom. Imagine an ambitious animated film that one man spent millions of dollars and decades of his passion and his personal time to create what he envisioned as the greatest animated movie of all time, only for it to be taken away from him, alter it to make it become something that it shouldn't be, and it ended up having it become the prize that comes in the cereal box. I can't even find a way to make a joke about it. This is just sad. But, going back to our story, whenever this tale would be told, some would just end it off here. The movie was finished, got released, and nobody lived happily ever after. However, what some might not know is that there is still more to tell in this tale of the thief and the cobbler. Some believe that once Williams had no choice but to give his passion project to the Completion Bond Company, he was done and wanted nothing to do with the film ever again. Well, that is not completely true. In fact, even after the movie's release, Dick and a few others didn't give up on trying to bring his vision to life. You'll see what I'm talking about very soon.